Hello and welcome to tonight's show.
And hello and welcome to episode 209 of On the Bench, the podcast for scale modelers by scale modelers, all about scale models. And this episode has been brought to you by our latest two Patreon supporters, Brendan Wrigley and Brian Clark. You two can help support the show just like these fine modelers. Simply go to www.patreon.com/onthebench and pledge any amount from as little as $1 per month upwards. Your funds help support the show and are greatly appreciated. Of course, you get a free OTB sticker and go into the wonderful Patreon Wheel of Fortune for some fantastic prizes. All right, let's get on with the show.
Are you looking for top quality paints for your next project? Then look no further than the Scale Modeler Supply, Australia's hobby paint. Hi, I'm Scott, and as a passionate modeler myself, I've spent years creating the SMS product range, designing them specifically with the scale modeler in mind. We have worked extensively to develop our acrylic lacquer paint range to not only be airbrush ready straight out of the bottle, but also to be easy to use so that anyone of any skill level can create professional results with minimal effort. Just give the bottle a good shake, pour into your airbrush, and spray at 15 psi. So dive into your next project with confidence, knowing that you're backed by one of the finest hobby paints on the market. Head over to our website at scalemodeler.com.au to check out our full range and to find your closest retailer.
And hello and welcome to the show. And in the studio, I've got with me Ian.
G'day Dave, g'day Julian, g'day everyone else out there on Radio Land.
Julian,
Good morning.
how are we?
Fantastic.
Yeah, not bad.
How we all been, gents?
Good, really good.
Building?
Yes.
Oh. Tell me.
Well, still working on that Tamiya 1350 scale Yamato.
Yep.
So yesterday I managed to get the main armament and secondary armament all built, ready for painting, and did the two catapults, the crane, and 6 anti-aircraft guns. So
Very cool.
It's getting there. I can no longer store it back in its box.
Yep.
Because I've now got the superstructure, bridge, funnel, mast, all on there.
So you're building in your new location now, quite happily?
Yeah, my little, it's a very tight squeeze. Luckily, I've got the hull and all that done, so otherwise I'd be in all sorts of bother.
But, now that you've proven you can build there, you can sort of, go on and build, can't you?
Well, my main problem now is once I built something, I've got nowhere to put it.
Oh, okay.
I've got no storage space.
Right.
Well, I mean, not if it's a ship like that.
No.
But if you built something smaller, you could find
Yeah, I could possibly, do something, but yeah. So all these big projects I still got planned, I still can't do. Not for at least another 1 or 2 years till I get my dedicated hobby room built in the
don't
backyard.
do big subjects right now. Do small subjects.
That's what I'm going to do.
Well,
I've got
it's pretty good for that.
I've got a small subject coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've got the 48.
Oh, yeah.
48-hour build coming up in 12 days, I think now.
Yeah.
12 days. So 48-48.org. Check it out.
Yes.
You'll be able to see Dave and myself model through model kits, which will be fun.
Yes. I got a horrible feeling I've got a work commitment on that weekend. So
another time you're going to bail on
I know. I might have to be leaving it with you and all the rest of the Aussie lads to sort of take that one.
And the Kiwis.
And the Kiwis, yeah.
Picked up some books.
Oh, cool.
Did a nice little order through Avmore Books.
Yeah.
So I've got volume 15, 16, 17 of Pacific Profiles. So B-25s, B-26s and B-17s in the Pacific War. The CAC Boomerang book that's just come out. Volume 3 of the Solomon's Air War. And number 22 scale, number 22 Squadron Bostons.
You have been very busy.
Yes, a nice little nice little spend there. And pre-ordered a couple of kits. So I pre-ordered the Edward A6M5 and A6M3-7 Kamikaze set, which is the the single seat and the twin seat Zeros.
Okay.
And pre-ordered the Pacific Stars P40 dual boxing from Edward.
Very nice.
And purchased a kit which should be coming this week too.
What kit?
The ICM Key 21, I think it is, a Sally, Japanese medium bomber.
Very nice.
So yeah, just buying kits.
I'm
again.
back, baby.
I'm back.
Yeah, well, whatever happened to? I'm just gonna save up money for my model room.
Yeah, but there's so many nice. Oh, and then wait for it. Yes, and then on my Facebook feed from my good mates there at 3D Wild.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you told me that.
Yes, it came up on my Facebook feed while I was at home, and I just, within 5 minutes, I was on the internet and purchased the 1:350 scale HMVS Cerberus.
Which was, this is back when Australia was colonies.
1870s.
And the colony of Victoria had its own navy.
Yes, we had a monitor.
Yes.
So sat about, 3 foot off the
But
water.
the freeboard was like 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is they put a mast on it and sailed it from England to Australia.
Yeah, it's an amazing trip.
And while I was on their website, I also and its thing's tiny, like it's absolutely tiny. The 1:350 scale CSS Hunley, yes, Civil War submarine.
That'd be a cool little kit to get, actually.
Yeah. Oh, it's tiny. It's absolutely tiny.
I'd love to go and see it in real life because they recovered that, didn't they, and put it into a museum.
Yes, and they found the crew still sitting at their stations.
Yeah.
They would have been killed by the percussion when that charge went off.
Very sad.
So I've been spending my money left, right, and centre as usual.
Good. That's what I like to hear. What about you, Julian?
Oh, yeah, I've got some stories.
Oh, here we go.
Well, let's start with the most recent one. So on the way here, I realised I left my car door open on Friday night and my battery went flat, so I had to get out the jump starter thing and get that whole thing going till I could come over here, which was not what I wanted to deal with early in the morning.
Not on the Sunday morning at 8:30 in the morning.
No, because I tend to cut my my travel, the time that I leave and the time that I arrive really close. So if something like that happens, it usually results in me being quite late. Yeah.
I always give myself plenty of time.
No, I can't deal with that. I can't. I would just waste so much time. I'll be like, I'm just blowing 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes.
Oh,
it's
all
over the place. And then you look at it, a week's worth of it, and you're like, I've spent half a day just in error margins,
No, I'll just make sure I leave at 9 o'clock in the morning to get here by 9:15. So I've got plenty of time to have a bit of a chat and breakfast, and then we're ready to rock and roll.
So the other thing is, because I'm working on the Moosaroo, and I need to paint some brush paint things.
And the Moosaroo, for your information, has to be done by March the 22nd.
Yes.
I think your cut-off is, because you've got to get the photos in.
Okay.
That's plenty of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to allow for procrastination.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I looked at my paint, and most of my brush paint is Citadel.
Yes.
Right?
Which does have a shelf life.
Well, yeah, it goes off and separates, and then there's the fact that when you use the paint, if you've used the paint even once, then it's dribbled down the back of those pop tops, and it's gotten into the ring where it closes, so it never seals properly if you've ever used it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And dries out.
And then the amount of the Citadel
out,
paints I've thrown out.
Yeah. So I had enough. I went to use one of them. And it's like, I can't use that. That's a color I need. And it's like, I've had enough. I'm just going to go Vallejo. Right?
Yeah, okay.
And so I was looking at it.
They're getting canned a lot now, aren't they?
Huh?
Vallejo.
Are they?
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of people canning them lately. I don't know if maybe they've changed their formula or something.
Oh, I thought the Gen 3 paints were really good. That's what people were saying to me. I don't know. I don't know. I suppose I'll find out if I wasted a bunch of money because
you can be a test bed.
I spent a lot of money.
Have
So basically I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to replace my entire paint line, I'm going to replace my entire paint line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I looked at it and I looked at those packs because they said like...
the boxes,
the big boxes, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't want to spend $1,000 getting every single color.
Yeah.
But I do want to get a lot of colors.
Yeah.
So I'll get one of the half-size packs or whatever, which worked out to be about $400 Aussie.
Oh,
good on you.
Wow.
I'm proud of you.
Well, but it's because like I looked at the price. I'm like, well, these are $5.50 each. So if I buy like 100 of these things in a pack, and it comes in a box to carry it all around in.
Yep.
I've saved $150 straight off the bat.
Yes.
Right.
So why would I not buy it? And like most people don't buy it because they go in like one bottle at a time, right?
Yeah.
But I already know that I want to get a whole bunch of bottles and I want to replace my entire existing paint. So why wouldn't I buy like 100 in one go?
Yes. Yes.
So that's what I did. And I ordered it from B&A Model World, which is our local online retailer. Yep. They don't have a bricks and mortar hobby store. And that's when so I put my order in, and in the past they used to have a little clock on the website.
Yes.
Because basically they would get they would send out all their orders into the mail system at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or thereabouts.
Yeah, around that. Yep.
Right, and the idea is that I didn't buy that one. That's the $1,000 one. With all that thing's really cool, but I'm not paying that much. I don't need like silver and stuff like that. I don't use silver for brush paints and stuff. So there's already like 20 colors in there that I wouldn't use.
Anyway, go on.
Anyway, so they used to have this clock, and you would be able to go, okay, well it's like 2 o'clock now. If I get my order in, I can send it out, and it'll land on my doorstep tomorrow. Because that's what would happen, right? And I'm not even talking express mail, right?
Yeah,
because
just standard Oz
because
post,
they're in our city,
Yes.
right? And they can have it on your doorstep.
Oh, they're in half an hour drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
But
yes.
it doesn't work that way. It's like that goes up to the distribution center, and the distribution center does the thing, and then blah, blah, blah. In any case, it would land on your doorstep the next day. But instead, I put my order in, and this has been like this ever since they changed their website, so it doesn't have the clock. It takes 2 days for them to even pack and ship my order. Like you can see the notifications from the carrier and from them, and it's like you can clearly see I bought it on the 24th, 25th, nothing happened, and then on the 26th, they're like, oh, yeah, we've sent it off, and the carrier's gone, yep, we've got your parcel, and we're now doing it.
Yep.
Doing the thing. It's like, I shouldn't have to wait that long just to get my stuff. Right?
Not when the warehouse is half-hour drive from our house.
It's ridiculous.
Well, maybe they're just so much more busier now.
Yeah, and then the carrier, like, there was this whole drama with the carrier where it was supposed to be.
Yeah. It was a drama and a half.
Yeah. So I've already mentioned this, and I don't want to say which carrier it was. Right, so what's happened is it's supposed to land on my doorstep. Requires a signature, so they didn't do that, and then I have to go and pick it up. I can't pick it up locally. I have to drive to like this distribution center. I drive to the distribution center, and it's not there. So I have to wait another. So I then go, okay, well I can't pick it up. I have to go to work. So I go to work. Then I get a notification saying it's there, which is a whole like 24 hours after. I was told that it would be there, and
you didn't have a good
and then
time.
this was on a Friday, so now I have to wait the whole weekend, right? And then it just keeps. It's like it's ridiculous. In any case, the whole ordeal has pissed me off.
Yeah, we can tell. We can tell you're upset.
It's just been one thing, and it did. And an extra little cherry on top. So I had to cancel my credit card because I started getting all these bloody DoorDash orders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got 2 DoorDash orders for like $100.
After, you reckon that...
I've never used DoorDash.
Yeah, wow.
So someone's gotten hold of my credit card details somehow.
How many days after you did your B&A order did that happen?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't remember. In any case,
Well, you don't use PayPal.
No.
Oh.
No, because PayPal takes a cut. If I can cut out PayPal, like I'll use PayPal for the extra layer of insurance for certain things, but otherwise I won't use PayPal.
I always use PayPal.
I use PayPal for my overseas purchases.
PayPal had its like place. It still does have its place for like more risky transactions, right?
Yeah.
Because you can always get your money back with PayPal.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, when now that we're not in the early days of internet shopping where you couldn't necessarily trust who you're buying from, it was much more useful as a nice insulator.
Yep.
But nowadays it's like, okay, well, I know that I can buy things from most places and it's all going to be okay,
Yep.
Nothing worse than your credit card getting hacked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
So I had to cancel that. And,
well, here's the thing. So you cancel your credit card and get a new one issued, but then you got to try and remember all the automatic payments you got coming out of your card, and it'll be like 1 or 2 months later, and something suddenly stop, and you go, "Oh yeah, that's right. I
forgot to
my
change
credit
that,
card."
yes.
No. I have mine all separated. So the card that I use for buying things on the internet is a credit card, and that's the only thing I pretty much use it for.
No, I've got everything because I've got frequent fly points, so I'm burning that card as hard as I can to get all the frequent fly points up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never checked my frequent flyer points.
Haven't you?
Well, maybe you should.
Yeah, maybe I should look into that.
Well, I've got to book a flight. I've got to book a flight for, for all three of us. We need to organise a flight for Queensland.
I watched a video once on frequent flyer points.
Yeah.
Because basically what happened was, like, I think it was during COVID, one of the airlines went bust. And so they had to sort of, to do what they needed to do, declare bankruptcy or whatever it was, they had to declare what they were worth. And then it all came out. Because what's happened is everyone realized that, frequent flyer points are basically like these airlines have created their own currency. Except they're both the bank and the shop that you sell and buy everything from. So they basically created a microeconomy.
Yeah.
And it was worth like a fortune.
Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy.
Yes, another flight you got to book this year too is Cairns.
Well, I'm going to do Cairns for you and me. Go up to the Tank Museum, Artillery and Armour, and I've got to book get our flights organised for Brisbane for QMHE.
Yes.
So that's in August.
Yeah, because it's going to be really good if we get it. Well, this year, because this year the Armour Museum, they're restoring one of my favourite little German armour pieces, the Wesp.
The Wesp. Yeah. I saw that in the latest episode, yeah.
It's like, hey,
I reckon it's taken, 12 months to do it? 18 months to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great little YouTube channel.
Yeah,
there.
I love it.
Yeah. Australian Armour and Artillery Museum,
Yes.
so go check it out.
Yes.
So is that the end of your woes?
I think so.
All right.
So yeah, I'm slowly kicking on. I just had to. I've even though I'm waiting for all this paint to come in, some $400 worth of paint,
which I've noticed you can't get now on B&A.
Yes, I had the only. I was the only one. They only had one in stock, I should say.
It's now out of stock.
Yeah.
Actually, something.
But it's an all right. It's an all right one. It's not like
that $1,000 one looks all right.
It
too.
does, yeah.
That could
I
be
don't
worth
know how many colours come with it or how many paint pots.
I'll have a look. It'll
I
tell you on
think it'll be
the
close to
site.
200, isn't it? It's all the way at the top.
There we go. No, you just passed it there.
Oh.
So how many do you get with it?
It's 233 paints. It's it comes in a metallic briefcase with the full range of third generation acrylics.
Yeah,
from,
so it's a double stack.
And that's the AK
Yeah.
paint.
Case.
Yeah.
So the one I got is a single briefcase kind of thing.
How many paints are in your one that you got?
I think about 100.
Okay.
Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
That works out cheaper that way. Too.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's...
Well, it's 233 divide. Yeah, it's
Times 233 at $5.50 a pop. Because that's how much.
Julian's getting the calculator out.
Yeah. So, because I can't do these calculations in my head.
Well, who can these days?
So, 200.
Julian's thinking. What about you, Dave? While Julian's doing
yeah. So you save about $220.
That's a good savings.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I've haven't achieved much. I've got the Harrier almost done. I'm just going to put the undercarriage on, and that's pretty much finished now.
Mm-hmm.
I might go back and play with a few sort of, weathering things or colours, but by and large, that's done now. What's the next thing? Oh, I've got a rocket I'd ordered. So
what rocket?
It's a Russian one, and the only way I could get it was ordering a kit via Romania, which I was a little bit dubious about. And I checked out online, and the guy said, no, it's a great company to deal with. And sure enough, it came on time. And
so you got it?
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's sitting in my... I should have pulled it out for you guys to have a look at. But what I'm more excited about is that Lincoln Wright...
I'm still kicking myself. It's not ordering mine yet.
Latest...
Hund.
Oh, yeah. Can I have a look?
Yeah, I will. But what would you call it? It's a... like a book.
It's a book.
Yeah, it's a book.
Yeah.
It's a book. It's got paper and cover.
And it is just absolutely divine.
Yeah,
and we're going to be getting Lincoln on in the very near future, and we're going to be having a very exciting sort of announcement to make in regards to that. And this is actually signed, this one, I think, in the front there.
How do you sign it?
Written something in
Something
there.
like saying, stop hassling me out,
Yeah.
Dave.
For Dave, release the Hund.
Release the
Lincoln Wright and his channel and On the Bench are going to be collaborating and doing something that's going to be really exciting. So
very cool. Can't wait.
That's coming up this year. We haven't landed an actual date yet. Link and I have got to work out just the mechanics of it. But in the meantime, we'll certainly get him on to talk about his latest book as well.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be really cool. Apart from that, I've just been really busy with life, unfortunately. And oh God, I went out last night. Went out to Nobu, the nice big Japanese chain. People all know what it is. It's a high-end Japanese restaurant. And I didn't get home till about 3 a.m. this morning. So, of course, you guys rocked up at 9:15. So I was a little bit seedy today.
You seem okay though.
I've drunk copious amounts of coffee.
Yeah.
That works.
I had during the week I had to do some repair works for my work because they've got a whole heap of scale models of Yanmar stationary and marine engines.
Oh yeah.
And a couple of them got damaged, and then someone mentioned that Ian builds models.
Oh, okay.
So the boss comes up with a box and goes, "Can you fix these?" It's like, okay. Luckily, it was just like bits that have fallen off. It's just a glue job.
So you could do it in work time, not your time.
No, I did it my time.
Oh, okay. Nice
Just put on a podcast and just whittled away at just basically got the glues out and just glued everything back together. The next day, dropped them all back at work. There you go, all done, fellas. Oh, that was quick. Yeah, well, don't muck about.
That's terrific. Alrighty, how about we? Sorry, yes, what?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like being like that.
The guy with the ute.
Yeah, the guy with the ute, or the guy who knows about computers.
Yes,
yes. It's like, oh yeah, you build models, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you fix this?
I get asked to glue things together all the time.
Yeah.
All right, we've got, believe it or not,
we got some mail back.
Since our last episode,
which was a week ago.
Which is only a week ago, we've got a ton of mail that's come in.
Oh, good.
And also a couple of voicemails as well.
Oh, awesome.
Which I always love hearing.
As Dave's trying not to run over his cord.
Trying to untangle myself, God. So, all right. Let's have a quick look at this one. So this comes from Thomas Gardner. I hope I've written that right, pronounced that. Gardner. G'day, Dave, Ian and Julian. Thanks for your ongoing contribution to the modelling community through your podcast. I always look forward to new episodes dropping and find the discussions a great modelling mojo booster, and I hope you're all keeping cool this summer and getting some good progress in your various subjects and projects. I seem to have contracted the car modelling bug from Julian. Oh, Thomas,
good on
I'm
you.
so sorry, man. And I recently finished a 124 scale Tamiya 1970 Nissan Skyline 2000 GTR Street Custom. I'm now halfway through a Fujimi Porsche 917K Le Mans in full livery with photo edge detail.
Oh, Gulf livery. Nice.
Trying to achieve that perfect glossy Duco finish is certainly a challenge after years of military modelling, but one that I'm enjoying very much so far. So I thought I'd share a couple of quick tips. which I've learned over the last 3 years for what it's worth. Number 1, a foam block with bamboo skewer alligator clips to hold small parts for airbrushing is a great investment.
Oh, yeah.
100%. That's really, really good. I use that all the time. Point 2, spray rattle cans are a great way to achieve a great finish, often quicker with less margin of error than using an airbrush in many cases.
See, I'm not sure if I agree with that, but I do that because I'm lazy.
Well, I you know what? I tend to agree with it. I'm lazy and I do it, but by God, you've got to be really precise as to how.
Can you get those cans in flat?
I don't know.
Flat clear.
Oh, flat clear.
Yeah, flat clear.
Yeah, absolutely can.
Does it go over the top of SMS paints?
Yes.
It'll go over the top of whatever you want.
Awesome! That's going to save me so much time finishing off the Yamato.
Because you're just going to hose the whole thing down.
Freaking hose it down, mate.
Yeah. So so in Japan, that's what they suggest you do with Gunpla model kits that they haven't painted, because you know how all the plastic comes in the correct colors. They're just like, okay, if you just spray can it with flat clear, that gives it that painted look without needing paint.
Yeah. It takes away that plastic sheen.
Yeah, that's like the, slightly above entry level finish.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool.
Tip number 3, the human thumbnail fingernail is one of the hobby's most underrated tools. It can be used as a paint palette, scraping tool, or clamp for photo etch or small parts when used in conjunction with your other digits. Doesn't help when you chew your nails like me, though. For moving away from water-based and acrylic paints to lacquer-based paints, thinned by Mr. Hobby Leveling Thinner, took my airbrushing game to the next level.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Number 5, sweeping over your models with an anti-static brush prior to spraying. I have the Tamiya one. Really cuts down on the amount of airborne nasties that get attracted to your freshly painted model. I've also found that spraying a fine water mister with an old spray bottle over your booth work area a minute or so before airbrushing also seems to minimise the amount of airborne particles. And of course, remember to gently place a clean container over your model as soon as you finish spraying.
Yep.
And just on that point, I was speaking to Mr.
Dave's got to think.
Mr. Pendleton Brown about that.
Yes.
And he also mentioned using, he buys these old, like, disposable plastic sort of lunch things that you use.
Yeah.
And he suggested it as a way for you, Julian, to protect your models. And you probably do it anyway, don't you?
Yeah, I do it when I'm painting, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you have to remember that with car models, you're spraying wet and it's got like a long drying time because you want it to level out and stuff. It's not the kind of thing that you would need to do on armor models, for example.
Yeah. And the final point, sites like Temu and AliExpress are a great source for modelling consumables like pipettes, paint cups, cotton buds, drill bits, sanding sticks, etc., and can be obtained cheaply and in bulk. Don't cheap out on paint, like tape and tools, though.
That's right. That's
remember when I bought me pipettes?
Yeah.
Never drink and buy pipettes. I thought I bought 100 pipettes and I bought 1,000. I got this massive box full of pipettes. I gave you a couple hundred. Gave Dave a couple
I still haven't gone through those.
No.
In fact, I don't even use pipettes anymore, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. So he says, don't cheap out on paint, tape, and tools.
Correct.
Right, and that is absolutely the truth. There are things you can cheap out on, but if you want to take things to the sort of if you want to remove as many errors from your process as possible, those are the things you should concentrate on.
So finally, that's from Tom Gardner.
Yeah, finally he says, I tried to subscribe to the 48 and 48 challenge build at their website by supplying my name and email address. However, I've not yet received any email instructions to confirm my interest. Not sure if anybody else has had this issue or if there's another way to register, ? I'll have to follow that up. I might flick this to you, Ian, so you can sort of follow it up, seeing you're the Aussie rep for that. Keep up great work and look forward to catching you at Expo in June. Best regards from Tom Gardner, Bendigo, Victoria, and a big shout out to the awesome members of the Bendigo Scale Modelers Guild.
That's come up pretty nice, that car, hasn't it?
Yes, so that's the Hakasuka GTR.
Is that an oil cooler hanging down the front.
Yeah, so there's like a bit of a sort of fashion, sort of a fashion thing where they would do stuff like that. Yeah.
It wouldn't be any good in Australia, would it? All the staying and knocking stones into that thing.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of yeah. It's like I guess that's the way to put it. It's a fashion thing. It's part of the Bosuzoku style. That and great big tailpipes that are like 6 feet long.
Our Patreon winner from last episode, Andrew Kira, wrote back and said, "Hi Dave, wow, awesome. Thanks so much for winning." He was only able to listen to episode 208 on his way home from work, and he couldn't believe his ears when we read out his name as the winner. And he's sure he had a bit of a wobble with the steering wheel as he was driving. He was saying that a little bit about him, that he's now 50 years old and recently returned to the hobby after 30 years. Gee, it's such a familiar story, that.
Yeah. And
he now mainly builds 72nd aircraft with Australian military subjects. And he's currently building a Academy in 72nd scale FA-18 Hornet in 90th anniversary decals. If it all goes well, he's aiming it to enter this year's scale ACT 2025.
Oh, cool.
Hashtag 1,000. We're pushing everybody to bring a model so we can hit 1,000 models for Canberra this year.
Yes, we are.
So, yes, Andrew, by all means, not only bring that one, but bring another 5 with you as well. He said he swore he'd never enter any of his work into shows, but we'll see. Mate, just go for it. Yeah.
It's fun.
Absolutely go for it. And I think that you will be surprised at how enjoyable it can be and how much fun it can be. The guys at Canberra, and for that matter also to Queensland, they make it so stress-free. Yeah.
They do. That's why we keep going back.
All right, how about we have a listen from one of our voicemail ones?
Yeah.
So let me just get that all lined up.
Hello, boys. So glad to be talking to you right now. Love the podcast, and you know who this is. It's your favorite crazy American. Ian, build some models. Dave, build some rockets. Julian, get back to armor. And stop being so pessimistic. No, you're not pessimistic. You're just Julian. Love you guys. See you soon.
Thanks, Brad. Really appreciate you.
Good old Brad Belshine. Great guy.
Him and the doc.
Yes.
I tell you what, it was very hard for me to correlate the Brad Belshine I know with the way he sounds in that recording.
Maybe he's shy when he records.
No, because he's so sociable in person, and that feels like the most sterilized version of him,
All right,
I am building, Brad. I am building.
Let's go back to some emails now. So from Brendan Wrigley, who's one of our latest Patreon supporters, he writes in, "G'day benches. Over the last few episodes, I've been following Ian's modelling studio build with keen interest, and also his thought process, the decisions he's making, and the banter with Dave and Julian around it. Ian, please keep us up in the loop throughout the build process. It's got me thinking, what if this went a step further? Imagine an MTV crib-style segment with Julian. You may need to explain this to the oldies, where as you travel around, you visit different modelers' spaces. A deep dive into how and why they're setting things up the way they have. Workbenches, lighting, storage, display solutions, the whole works.
That's a great idea.
I reckon this could be of real interest to others. The old model room ideas thread took off, so there's definitely an appetite for it. That said, there are a few hurdles. Number one, finding modelers with clean enough space for starters. Plus, this might suit a visual media better rather than podcast, let's be honest. I've met Dave and Ian, and there's a reason you picked the podcast instead of YouTube, you cheeky sod.
He's got a point. We've both got faces for radio.
I like how my name is not listed in that.
Oh, okay.
Well, he hasn't met you yet, John.
Anyway,
is that what it is?
Anyway, just something to mull over and keen to hear your thoughts. We have heard them now. Bench hard, he says. P.S. I've been listening to you guys for ages and have sent in a few emails. But I went too long without supporting you, and I encourage those who can to support the show through Patreon. It's a small price to pay for the fortnightly entertainment that I and many others get. Thank you very much, Brendan. Really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, well, the modelling rooms, just going to take a while. Before I
you know what would be really cool if you can post some pictures to the Facebook to show how small it is.
Yeah, it's tiny.
I think that'd be really good.
Well, let's just say I'm working out of a two-door wardrobe.
Yeah, but if you could post it, I reckon that would be inspiring to others that are in a similar sort of situation to you.
Yeah,
I reckon it really would be. So
I'll do that. I'll get some photos tonight.
100%.
Put them on.
All right. Tony Jacob writes in, just watched a video, what I think is the single most incredible build and finished model that I've ever seen. So I had to share it. That's a big call there, Tony. Julian, you've probably already seen it, and I have to thank you for pointing me in the right direction. Ian, if you haven't seen this, it will give you wet dreams. And Dave, I know you haven't seen it, and even though it's a car model, seriously, do yourself a favour and watch it. There'll be a pop quiz after the check you've done your homework. Now, this is a YouTube of a 1/24th scale Mercedes-Benz 300 SL build
scale
by Tamiya. And you're familiar with this, aren't you, Julian?
Well, yeah, I threw this kit away. So I made some mistakes, and I just couldn't live with them. Is basically what happened. I would have had to start over again, like the way I tried to fix the problem, and it just went completely bad.
Yeah.
Basically, I ended up with a hair in my paint job, and I tried to fix it up by like pulling the hair out with tweezers, and it mucked up the paint. And then I tried to sand that down, and it just created a flat spot. And nah.
So what's the actual builder of this? Who's the...
This is A4 Garage.
A4 Garage, okay. So if just go to YouTube and Google A4 Garage and maybe Mercedes-Benz 300 SL.
It'll be one of his most popular videos.
Yeah.
It's from 2 years
Goes
ago.
for just under 2 hours.
It's actually, I fast-forwarded a lot of it, but I was really astounded by his skill level and the attention to detail that he took. So it's well worth a look. Thanks for pointing it out to us.
I do have one of those to build in the future. Right, I did buy some. I think I bought some replacement wheels because I went with the different hubs than those.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Next one comes from Brian. G'day, benches. I enjoyed your last podcast about Hearns and its sister store. I have fond memories of Hearns. While on holiday in Melbourne in 2018, I stopped in Hearns looking for a Formula One die-cast car. My wife saw a model I should build. I hadn't built a model in nearly 50 years, so I decided to give it a try, and I bought it. 7 years later, and over 100 models built. I'm still building models of many subjects and scales. I've included pictures of a model I built as a replica of my 2012 Ford Mustang Boss 302, and I combined parts and decals from 3 models to build it. As you can see, I'm wearing the highly coveted and ultra-rare OTB t-shirt, the same one I wore when Dave gave me an OTB coin last year, IPMS in Madison. Take care. That's Brian McFetters. And there he is. I never realised Brian actually came by Melbourne and went to Hearns. That's and interestingly enough, our next episode is going to be from the Hearns Hobbies in Melbourne.
Yes.
And we're really looking forward to that. This should be exciting.
It's been around for many, 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 many years.
Absolutely. An absolute icon.
Yes.
Absolute icon. So thanks for that, Brian. Really appreciate that email.
Very nice looking kit too, mate.
It was a nice story about how he hadn't picked up a model for 50 years and then
afterwards, I love those stories.
And happened to be just at our one, right? In Melbourne, of all places.
Dermot Crowley writes in, "Hi guys, last time we talked was at the ACT show, and again, many thanks for your encouragement to attend and put a model into the mix. It was a great experience for someone still fairly new to the hobby. Over the last year and a half, I have been rekindling my passion for modelling, and I have built 6 to 7 models and have seen my skill levels increase with each one. learning to use an airbrush, and building a diorama for a recent model of a C-130J Hercules.
Geez, that'd be a decent-sized diorama.
Yeah, it would be. I want some 1/44th scale or 1/72nd. I have been adventurous enough to try lots of new techniques and attempt some pretty complex models, but I realise that this is possibly at the expense of nailing some of the basics. My next model, which I will choose to be simple and quick build, I intend to focus on one basic technique and really try to nail it. I reckon there are 3 things I could do better to lift my game from novice to intermediate. And these are, number 1, getting the seams and joints spot on and invisible. 2, dealing with ejector pin marks and mould lines. And 3, applying decals without silvering. I'm okay at all 3, but I really noticed at the show that the great models dealt with all these things as standard. So my question to the 3 of you is, how would you prioritise these basic skills? Which would you choose as the basic skill I should absolutely nail to go to the next level? And what advice... and what would be your advice to improve my skills in the area you choose? I appreciate having a forum like this to ask these questions and get different perspectives from highly experienced modelers. Keep up the good work, boys. That's regards from Dermot.
So I think that all of 3 of these are at different stages of the construction of a model. So I think you can actually 100% them on the one model.
Yep. Agreed.
Right? Like if you build 3 models, you can 100% focus all of these aspects on all 3 of those models. There's no need to sort of, like, I don't know, deal with it like sequentially kind of thing.
Yeah.
The first one is...
injector pin marks would be the first part.
No, the first one is seams.
Yeah, but injector pin marks would be before seams.
Yeah, that's right, chronologically.
So talk to ejector pin marks, what are they?
Well, basically they're the little divots.
Well, they're not always divots. Sometimes they sit proud.
Sometimes they sit proud, yes. It's basically where, as they call it, an injector. It's a pin.
It's where the part has been injected from the mould during the manufacturing process.
And where it's pushed through.
It's typically on the less important side, so it's usually on the inside of a plane.
You would hope.
Or a tank. Yeah.
But sometimes they're in places that are nearly impossible to get rid of.
That's usually the case, yeah.
In that case...
there's a few methods.
Styrene, a bit of styrene that's hopefully the same thickness, and if you can punch it out, like get a hole punch and punch out a disc and glue it in place.
To fill the ejector pin mark.
Yeah. Because you know if you're going to use Tamiya putty, it's going to come back and bite you in the bum in 6 months' time when the Tamiya putty shrinks.
Yep. The other thing
or super glue
you can do is like cut out a piece of very, very thin plastic card.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the entire.
Like the
you know how like you got like the spaces between the spars.
Yep.
You can cut one out that fills that entire space and glue that whole thing
Just
in
hide
to cover
it that way.
Yeah, hide it that way. Yep.
Yep.
Wallpaper over it.
The other thing is like if you have to go in there and sand, what you can do is you can cut off a piece of, the sanding paper that's attached to foam.
Yes.
And then you can glue that on the end of like a toothpick.
What I used to
and
do
then
is
you
I
can
used to
sand in there like that.
Because I did a lot of ship bases. I had different sizes of square wooden rod, and basically I just super glue a bit of wet and dry sandpaper on the end of one of those, then trim it to size, and just use that like a pencil and just
once you
sand
once
away.
You get into like gluing sandpaper or sanding paper that's attached to foam onto sticks and other tools. Like, there's no limit to where you can get
exactly, in. Yeah, you can get into those areas. Because there's no point, there's no way you can do it by finger.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to sand the plastic away from around it.
That's right.
So sometimes you just got to create your own tools, your own shape sanding tools to get in the right spot. And it's not hard. It's quite quick and simple to do something like that. And why more people don't do it, I don't know. Maybe they just haven't thought about it, but. That's with the ejector pin marks.
Yep. For seam lines, I would say probably the best move that you can do is basically nothing. In that, what I mean by that is like after you've glued together your two like fuselage seams, just leave it for a week.
Yeah.
Right? It'll stabilize a lot more and whatever, because what people often do is they're eager to get into a kit, right? And they'll glue them together, and then the next day they'll go at it with the filling and the sanding and all that sort of stuff. But really, they could just let it settle.
Well, I always used to. Basically, when I've glued it together, when the glue's dry, I'd putty it and then I'd put it away for a couple of weeks to let that putty shrink a bit.
Yeah.
Before I sanded it. But even now, 6 months later, some of those things I've used that technique on, the freaking seam lines are back again.
Yeah.
It's just putties have a habit of shrinking. So super glue, but the problem with super glue is super glue's harder than the plastic, so you're more liable to sand.
Yeah, you always unknowingly remove a lot of material from the plastic and lose surface details.
Yeah.
In that process.
There are ways around it. You just got to mask up very closely to where your super glue is, so that when you're sanding, you're sanding on top of the masking rather than on top of the plastic. You're just hitting the super glue.
Most of the problems arise from the fact that
putty shrinks.
Putty shrinks, and also the glue, the solvent glue, seems dry and hard, but it hasn't settled.
Yes,
and it, that's the foundation that you're putting your putty onto, and if that changes, then the whole thing changes.
Yep.
So if you slow the whole thing down and take it easy and maybe work on something else in the meantime, you can avoid a lot of trouble that turns up later.
Recently, I've been experimenting with 3D resin.
Oh, I get you.
Putting it into a small squeeze bottle and going along the actual line and just squeezing it out as I go along, then hitting it with a UV lamp and then coming back and sanding it off. Now, the problem with that is I've found, believe it or not, that the 3D resin is harder than the
plastic,
styrene. So you've got that issue the same as what you had with the super glue.
Best way is run masking tape along the sides of it.
The other thing that I've done, particularly with my rockets, and if I'm having a particular bad seam that is really, really proving to be tough and I just can't seem to sand it back before I put paint, or it's coming up again after I've done the undercoat, what I'll do, I'll go back in and do a light scribe along that particular seam line, and I'll put in a bit of styrene plastic, like you can buy the evergreen one, and I get some really, really thin stuff, and I'll melt it into there with some air extra thin, walk away and leave it, and then come back a day later, clean it up initially with a hobby knife, or in my instance it's a scalpel, and then go in and sand it, and I find I can get rid of that, and I've got no fears about that coming back because it's sort of plastic, not plastic glue or plastic filler or whatever. So I've tried that, and it's been reasonably safe. But even the best modelers still have stories about they've done this fantastic builder, and then a year later they go and check out their wonderful creation and they notice that the ghost seam has popped back again.
Yeah.
So even to the best of us, it still happens.
Yeah.
What's his last point there?
Decals, silvering.
And
good decal setting solution always works.
Not for me. It's not the setting solution. It's the
flatness of the paint.
The softer solution.
Yeah.
Because every company sells you a setter and a softer, and it's the softer, the one that actually softens up the decals and lets it sort of nestle down into panel lines and things like that.
And make sure your paint's not has a grainy finish.
Yeah. I mean, just sort of just make sure it doesn't feel like sandpaper.
Yeah,
is basically the easiest way.
Could I perhaps suggest it also does something else? So there are opportunities with kits that you get. There's a spare part or something like that. So when you're spraying your model, spray that spare part with exactly the same paint at the same time.
Yep.
And use that as a mule to test.
Yeah, because you're going to have decals left over.
I like that idea. I just never do it.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually started doing it from time to time when I'm particularly worried about some really detailed. I'm confident enough now on the setter stuff that I can melt the decal down, but I'll still get bitten on the bum
my process is I put the decal down, then I do the thing where once I've got it in place, I roll the cotton bud / Q-tip across it to squeegee out any air that might be under it.
Or water still.
Yeah. And then I'll just put my softer on.
Yep.
And if you use an actual brush with your softer rather than just using.
That's what I do. Yes.
Yeah, you can control it much better the amount that you put on, so you don't end up with it beating up and burning a hole in your.
I have a dedicated brush purely for softer. Yeah, and look, there's people who say gloss before, don't gloss. That's a huge discussion that's going on. What I say to you is find what works for you.
Yep.
If you find you can get away with doing it without glossing, fine. If you do glossing, that's something you enjoy doing, fine, do it that way. Whatever actually works for you.
Yeah. But either way, no matter which one of those you pick, I would still recommend using softer. That seems to be like
100%.
The real hammer for the job.
100%.
Well, hopefully that's helped you out a bit there, Dermot.
Yep.
Very good. All right, we've got another voicemail message, so how about we have a listen to that?
Yes.
Morning, boys. It's James from the UK, from JMC. I just wanted to give you a quick shout out and say what a wonderful idea this is. I'd not seen this before, so I thought I'd give it a go and say hello. And to also remind you that 48 is not far away now. I hope you're all ready. Love listening to your podcast. Keep it up, guys. Great fan. Love you all. Bye.
Good on you, James. Yeah, definitely. I'm all set, James. Models there. Got me paints. Got me base all my wooden base. I haven't done any modelling on the base, but I've got a wooden base ready for it because 48 hour and 48. Ian's has to go on a base.
Yes, of course it does.
So yeah, no, looking forward to it. So yes, less than 12 days away.
Indeed. All right, last email comes in from Adelaide. And greetings from Adelaide. Hi, Dave, Ian and Julian. Just want to congratulate you for the recent episode number 206 promoting Models for Heroes 48-hour build event, including your interview with the organiser, James Skiffins. I was very inspired by the concept as I don't have any motorsport officiating activities over that particular weekend, so I decided to register and be part of it and signed up. I've selected the model from my stash, which is a Tamiya 48 scale British light utility car, also known as a Tilly.
Kid, I've got one myself.
And whilst I'm a slow builder, there is little likelihood that it will get completed or finished in 48 hours, but I'm happy to be taking part. It will be an ideal small model for me to take with some other smaller size models on the plane to scale ACT later in the year. I met Dave briefly at Scale ACT in 2023, and I'm looking forward to hopefully chatting with him and the three of you indeed this year. Great. It's fantastic to actually doing that, Dave, but don't forget hashtag 1000. So don't bring just one model. If you can answer, bring 5. So Dave continues on. I was also highly amused in the following episode, number 207, by Julia's misinterpretation of Ian's comment. I picked up some free French when he was describing his recent purchases for the 48-hour build. I had versions of Ian chatting up naughty waitresses Yvette from the classic British World War II television series Hello, Hello.
Yeah, it was a great series.
Not sure if Julian would have been probably been a bit young for that when it was aired, but I'm sure Ian will get the reference.
I sure did. I'm actually, one of the figures I was actually thinking about, I can't remember his name, but one of them is actually in a gendarme uniform, so I might give him a pencil mustache.
I've also been listening to the earlier episodes of On the Bench, in particular the much maligned by you guys first 10 shows. These were nothing like what I'd heard you describe them as not being very good. I found it to be entertaining, and with Julian's arrival after a handful of episodes, the three of you quickly formed a cohesive trio that obviously enjoy each other's company. Well, I put up with these two characters rolling up. The good-natured banter and warmth of conversations was evidently quite natural and has continued to this day. Long may you keep bringing the modelling community great community content, humour and entertainment. But finally, I just want to give a shout-out to Lincoln Wright, the Australian sensei of the Machine Krieger universe. If he is not officially a sensei, then he should be. I don't know if he is or isn't.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
Yes, sensei.
I'm eagerly watching my post office box delivery notification for the arrival of his latest book, Hund, which is volume 3 of his masterpiece works on MAK modelling. This one is about the Grosser Hund series of models and will be every bit as fantastic as the previous 2 volumes and likely even better. As a Patreon supporter of Link, I can tell you that he involves us in the creative process, and it is wonderful to be a part of. If you can get him back on the show again soon to promote it, I'm sure the MAK fan base would love it. I'm also looking forward to catching up with Link at Scale ECT. Keep up the great work. Best wishes, Dave Langfield. Well, Dave, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, we've got our copy, and it is as wonderful as you would hope it would be. And as I also teased earlier on in the show, we're going to be doing a really exciting... Oh, let me just pause that for a second and come back. Oh, sorry to interrupt about that spot there. So as I was saying, we've got a really exciting news that we're going to be announcing a collaboration between Link and ourselves coming up in later on this year that I'm sure that all MAK, indeed model builders, are going to find very exciting. All right, that brings us to the end of Mailbag. And again, thank you everybody for writing in. You can send us an email to onthebench64@gmail.com. And of course, don't forget to check the show notes for the little link for our speak pipe so you can also leave us a voicemail message, which I'm glad to see is starting to finally catch on.
Yes.
And people...
It's a great way for us to actually hear the voices of the...
And interact with our audience, we love it. Yeah. We cannot finish up without doing our famous Patreon Wheel of Fortune.
Yes, and what have we got for a prize
we have got one of our very coveted and secretive OTB coins, which we're going to be giving away.
Nice.
So we're ready for a roll.
Fire away, Dave.
And it'll be really interesting to see who is going to win this time. So when you become a Patreon, your name goes into the wheel. As we click around, the winner is Garvin Lee. And I'll be sending an email out to you, Garvin, and getting your address so I can post out your exclusive OTB challenge coin. All right, we've got a fantastic interview coming up, which I'm sure that you are going to really enjoy. We're going to be listening or having a chat with the man, the voice, Rob Riv.
Yes.
Back for a short. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce the voice, the man, the legend in his own lunchtime, Rob Riv. How you going, mate?
I'm doing well, Dave. Nice to see you.
For the listeners at home, we have just had the most humongous technical issues getting this all sorted out. From not being able to find a candle to light to illuminate Rob's beautiful face through to us not being able to get the sound connection working fine. But we're all set now. We're ready to rock and roll. We've got Riv on to have a chat about Publish or Die. We're going to talk about the publication side of our lovely, beautiful hobby, even down to how to perhaps get yourself amongst that hallowed group of people who've been published in the past, such as our very own Ian.
Yeah.
Rob, how are you, mate?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
That's good. Tell the audience, for those who don't know who you are or what you are. So let's take a step back and just give a rundown on who or what Rob Riv is.
What I am? Well, I'm a pain in the neck. You know that. Well, I mean, I'm an armor modeler, first of all. Yeah. And I do everything armor modeling. And I think that the hobby is an amazing thing. I've met a lot of great people in the hobby, and that's what it's all about for me.
Wait a bit. So you say you sort of just jumped in as if you sort of been doing, modeling for ages. Where did you start as a
Oh, you want me to go all the way back to the beginning?
Yeah, let's go back to the cradle.
I'm going to go back to the cradle. I mean, just like anybody, I started early. I was I started building models when I was like, probably like 7, 8, 9 years old. My father was a big HO scale train guy.
Oh, okay.
And he would always go back and forth to the hobby shop to buy like stuff for like to do the landscapes on these big train sets he would do. He would spend hours, doing this stuff, but never run a train. He never ran trains. He just built the landscape, my father. And I used to go with him to like the hobby shops. And when I would go, I would see like, the awesome like Tamiya models, monogram models like in the display back then. Buy like air fixed planes, 1/72nd scale when I was a kid. I would paint them up and build them. and like throw them out the window and see if they could fly, things like that when I was a kid.
To put firecrackers in and all that like we used to?
Firecrackers and everything, exactly. And then, fast forward, you're a teenager, I really wasn't building much. And then, when I was in my early 20s, my father became like terminally ill. So he went through a lot. And then I went a couple of years where I wasn't building. And then my mother got sick. And it was that time where I remembered I needed something when my father was ill. So I went back to the hobby. And I was probably like in my mid-20s at that time.
Yeah.
And then when I started up, I haven't stopped.
Wow, that's awesome. And you say you're more of an armor builder than anything else?
More of an armor builder more than anything else. I build, I'll do sci-fi, things like that, but no planes, no ships, no cars. I'm not really into that side of the hobby too much. It's all just armor building. I'm more of a scratch builder, photo etch guy. I think I'm known in the hobby more for my photo etch and, scratch building, things like that. I'm the type of guy, people know my stance on 3D printing, so I hope we don't talk about that tonight because I'll get hate mail and people want to come get me. But I consider myself more old school, Tony Greenland-esque type. I don't know if you guys know Tony, but Tony was a big inspiration for me. Mm-hmm. His Panzer modeling book from Osprey back in the mid-'90s is like the Bible for me.
Yep.
So when I got back in the hobby, that was the book that really got me back into it hardcore and made me want to be the type of model I am today. Because when I saw his builds, that's what I wanted. I wasn't about the paint jobs. I was all about like down to the basics. Photo etch, scratch building, redoing kits, doing things. That was what even today, that's what I do.
So is that where you get most of your pleasure from, building rather than painting and weathering?
Yeah, well, that's where I get my chops busted the most because people say, "Oh, Riv, you don't paint all the time." But most of the time, when I'm building, it's like 90% of the people like you can't paint it. So I do paint, obviously, but for the most part, a lot of builds I do stay like in that naked form for a while. I got like 100 models like in bins, just stacked.
But there's a sublime beauty about a model that's just sitting there in the raw, if you get what I mean. Sometimes, I mean, to my eyes,
especially when you're using photo etch.
Yeah. To me, I mean, you know how a manufacturer, if they're bringing out a new ship or a new the tank, they'll just slap it together and put the photo etch on, and that's what they'll say, hey, this is what's coming out. Sometimes I find that alluring and quite attractive as well, just seeing the model in its raw form.
Right. I mean, it's the foundation of any great model. The foundation is the build, right? So in my opinion, painting today is different than painting back in the day. I know that there's been like these eras. It's like there's like the Renaissance era, like or whatever eras, Picasso, whatever eras. The hobby's gone, especially in armor, has gone through like these periods of time where, there's these trendy types of ways to paint models, the Verlinden way, and back, Mig doing his Spanish
school, yep.
Right, and now you're at a point where, and we were just talking about this last night as a group when we do our build rooms for the Insanity. I was, at this time, everything is the same today. Right, so we all know the eras of these of painting, and today it seems like everybody paints the same way. Like models look the same. Like if you see you take 10 models as randomly off let's say social media, Instagram, Facebook, and you look at them, they can all be done by the same modeler. It's just like because everybody's reading the same magazines, they're reading the same books, they're watching the same YouTube videos, they're using the same weathering products, they're trying the same techniques, and that's the way it is today. And for me, it's not as exciting looking at that. When I look at the builds of these models and the work that people put in these builds, to me, as a modeler, I find it more attractive to see like a really, really interesting build of a model as opposed to like streaking and speckling and how much mud am I going to put on the suspension to cover my tracks and how bad the wheels went together. Like I don't get fooled by that. So I appreciate a build better than I do a paint job. Always.
You mentioned that
bad?
sometimes.
I don't know.
Well, the hobby's whatever you want it to be, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is the downside, I guess you can say, of the whole modeling world sort of being funneled into the internet, is that we're all in the one space and we're all bouncing off of each other. So there's no sort of
individuality.
Yeah, well, there's not like the way I would sort of put it is like, for example, the Spanish school of modeling came out of Spain, right? But it came out of Spain because they were doing their own thing and they sort of developed a culture that was unique to that specific area. There's less of that going on because we're all on the global stage now, thanks to the internet.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's sort of, the overall level of all the modelers have sort of gone up as we've sort of looked at each other and seen what we're all doing, right? And shared the knowledge. But it also means we've sort of unified across the board, right?
Mm.
Right, and social media is like obviously a lot to do with that. I mean, like you said, and I think one of the good things that you said is that back in the day, and I hate saying back in the day, people say back in the day, but back in the day, not too long ago, there was a time when people didn't share secrets or share the way they did things.
Correct.
They weren't really up to, don't get me wrong, today people are trying to sell product, but that aside, like modelers weren't always open to show how they did things. I think armor models maybe a little more than other types of genre of like car modelers or planes. But today it's like it is open and people do share secrets and they show the way they do things and they, openly, have tutorials on YouTube or shorts on TikTok, things like that. People see this and I think it's good and I also think it's bad. I mean, like I said, like Dave said, individuality, what you get out of the hobby, as long as it makes you happy, that's great. And I love it. But I think that today there's certain people that you can know as a modeler and what they're capable of doing and how they do it. But it gets muddled in this mess because everybody's stuff, in my opinion, especially in the armor world, looks very similar in a lot of ways. There's nothing differentiating you from somebody else. And when it comes to the builds, I always felt like that was something that I can continue to do to keep myself maybe separated from maybe some of the other modelers.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like a lost art, like scratch building and photo etch and soldering and making your own parts and drawing up plans and measurements on paper to fix things and correct issues on models is something that's kind of lost today. Now people don't go on a piece of paper and try to fix like an engine deck on a model. They might go to, a computer and draw it in CAD and print it in their little, their 3D printer. It's automated now. I know I use that word, people get mad, but the hobby is becoming more automated when it comes to certain things. It's a click of a button. It's a download off of a website to get a file. And you need to replace a cockpit? You don't have to do much work on it. I'm just going to download this file.
Yeah, but
I need to...
Rob, isn't that not a reflection of society and where we are at the moment anyway? So you know what it is what it is.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It is a reflection of society. I mean, AI is kind of taking over in a lot of ways. You see it happening more and more recently.
Yeah, the great enemy of all things art. Yeah. And that's another thing, right? I mean, if everyone wants to sort of elevate their skill level, right? And so that's why they go on YouTube, they look at the tutorials, they absorb the content, they incorporate that into their own thing. And that's why you're getting this sort of, everyone the same kind of thing. But what sort of is supposed to happen is that at the top end of the, the top modelers at the very tippy top are supposed to be unique in their style, right? You should be able to say, oh, that's definitely his work. Right?
Right.
But you can't really do that, can you? Not these days.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Like
you look at it and you're like, okay, well, that's very nice work. That's as good as this other guy that I like. That's night shift level work, right? But how do I tell the difference between night shift's work and that guy's work?
Right. I think night shift has been a big influence on a lot of people in the hobby, at least in the armor world, but maybe across the board. Plasmo, guys like that. These are guys who are exceptional modelers, and they do exceptional work and can do and build anything, and I think that they've done really well with inspiring people. It's all about inspiring.
Yes.
It's about inspiration. Yeah. Like when I do something and I do builds, like I do on the bench builds for military modelcraft on a monthly basis. Some of them are review out of the box type things. Like I've done like recently, like, Andy sends me like, his MM13 and I'm building that for the magazine to do a build. But then there's also other models where I fully, use photo etch sets and fully rework, like I did the new King Tiger from Ryefields, and I redid the mud guards to make them workable, and all the photo etch armor texturing, things like that, where I get a lot of messages from people like, wow, man, you really inspired me to go and buy that model and do that on my King Tiger. Well, how did you do that? I like to see how you do that. And that's what makes it, for me, the fun part, because I want to inspire people to not just try it, but also keep that part of the hobby like alive. Like I'm holding on to it like a tug of war, like I'm hanging off like I don't want it to leave. People say, oh yeah, I get into these pretty big arguments over 3D printing with people. I did it on our podcast, on the Insanity podcast, where it was like an argument about 3D printing. And sometimes I have a hard time letting go with it. Like, I don't want to see that part of the hobby go. That's why I worry about that. But for me, again, no, Dave, we went on a tangent, but I'm known for that.
Well, it's a good tangent. I'm going to keep that tangent going because I'm going to ask you now about your sci-fi stuff that you do.
Oh, sci-fi?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't do as much sci-fi as I once did. Believe it or not, I used to do a lot of Star Wars and Star Trek models back in the day. But I kind of veered away from that over time because armor modeling really took over more of my time as it went on. I'm talking about the old like AMT Star Wars. Not the Bandai stuff today that you could buy and they're phenomenal. When you want to build like the cutaway AMT Millennium Falcon, it's a lot different than building the, the perfect grade Bandai kit or the fine molds kit. That's for sure.
So do you still dabble in that area, or is it that's something
I
in
do?
your past?
I do. I'll dabble with the sci-fi from time to time. I've been starting to build more Gundams lately. I've been really enjoying like the Gunpla in some ways. It's a nice little departure, but it also allows you to do things a little differently, especially with the Maquet stuff, the MAK stuff. Like we had Lincoln right on our show. We did a big thing with the Maquets, and Lincoln's amazing. We talk about a guy like Night Shift who inspires like these armor modelers to try different things with armor modeling. But then you got like a Lincoln Wright that's doing all this stuff with the MAKs or Maquets or however you want to say it. Yeah, where you can really do what you want with that stuff.
And we're so lucky to have him in our backyard as well. So it's
he's a great guy.
Yeah, and we've got some interesting stuff coming up with Lincoln in coming months. So I'll just leave that there as a teaser for people.
Now he is a good guy and he's amazing, and like he's the Night Shift of that MAK stuff. He's the god. You're the Podfather. Yeah. He's the godfather of MAK over there.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. So I'm gonna let's do you back on to actually what we got you on for, to talk about model magazines and getting published. And I'm going to open with a statement and see what your response is, and that is modeling magazines are dying. No. Oh, Ian answered for you. He said no.
No, I'm going to say that, you know what? Some are.
Yeah.
There's some publications that have suffered from the internet, social media, but some haven't. Some are still thriving. Some aren't as much. There's been a couple of magazines over the last week or two one publication has stopped their bi-monthly magazines because they weren't selling a lot. But yes, they're not like back, in 2005 or maybe 1995.
Oh, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s were the high tide mark.
I have bins and bins and bins of fine scale model, model military, military model craft when they first started from all these years. AAV model of Dave Parker's magazine from back to issue 1. Like I have bins that it's a fire hazard. I got so many model magazines in the bins. But the thing is yes, in some ways they are. But in other magazines still continue to do really, really well. Now, there's also the different models people follow. You got to remember, there might have been a lot more overhead maybe back in the 90s to do a magazine, right? So for an instance, let's say Fine Scale magazine, this is a common magazine. It covers all the genres in the hobby, right? You guys are familiar, obviously, with Fine Scale. Right. So obviously they just recently got bought out and they're under a new publishing company because they were having issues. They moved to like an every 2-month magazine, and then they were going online or whatever. But I heard they're going back to the original model. Anyway, magazine like Fine Scale, you had 3 editors there. You had people submitting, discs with pictures or film, negatives. They were sending, in the mail, sending, handwritten articles to these people that have to read and type and edit and try to fix. Back then, it cost a lot of money to produce a magazine. The layout tools were not computerized. So the amount of money it took to make a magazine back in 1990 is a lot different than 2025. Even maybe 10 years ago, it's a lot different. Today, you don't need to be like in a headquarters where you're paying rent of $15,000 or $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month to have overhead. Now you could do it from your home. Military Modelcraft, which is the highest selling English speaking armor magazine in the world. And it sells great in the US, it sells great in England and in Europe. But I mean, obviously there's other magazines that sell well that aren't English speaking, but this is the, English speaking magazine, does really well. That magazine is produced from people's homes. It's not done at some, office building with printers in the background.
Yeah.
This stuff is, Dave Grummett works from his dining room table, and he gets articles submitted from people that we get as contributors, like myself, who I take pictures with my digital camera. I go on my computer. I might fix them a little bit in Photoshop. I write my articles mostly on my phone. Well, I'm on the toilet. I write my article.
So is that where your best work's done, is it?
That's
right,
where
on iNotes and stuff.
that's where the
like
toilet humor comes from.
He missed it. I gave a perfect joke there and you missed it.
No, what'd you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What'd you
I said
say?
your best work's done on the toilet.
It is. And you're going to feel bad, but you know that I'm a colon cancer survivor, too.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, good on you. Yes, I do feel
Now
bad
you feel bad, don't you?
I feel like an absolute beep at the moment.
10 years almost cancer-free. But again, so a lot of the money that it costs to produce isn't there anymore. Like, it doesn't cost as much, I don't think, to produce a magazine like it once did. I mean, it still costs money, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't cost as much to produce, right? So, for instance, like when you get these articles submitted that Dave will send me, and we're looking at the articles that are going to be in the magazine, whether it's featured articles showing builds, paint jobs, review type articles that might be 1 or 2 pages, interviews that might be like this month coming up. We have, I don't know if you guys know who Greg Solar is. Greg Solar is a really well-known American. He's done stuff for Verlinden. He actually had a book from Verlinden. We have John Rosengrant that just recently has an interview. These are all well-known English guys. We're trying to get some American models in this magazine. To make a long story short, like when we put this, when the magazine gets put together, everybody's home. Andy Whittaker, who's the layout guy for this magazine, he does a fantasy figure as well. He's doing it from his computer, his house. He's not in an office. So there's not a lot of overhead that people think that this is produced in some, it's like the Daily Planet, like in Superman.
Yeah.
In the hallway, and they run into press and there's a printing press. No, it gets farmed out to like a third party. It gets printed by like outside and then it gets distributed. That's how it's done now. Yeah.
I mean, that's how it's done if you want to run
Run a successful one.
Yeah. If you don't want to just run it into the ground.
Right. Like you were saying, the magazines, the publishing of model magazines is definitely declined because of what's accessible to people on the internet and social media, right? It's very accessible, YouTube videos. But people still like looking at books. Like people still like I still like reading a magazine in my hands. Like I get the magazines digitally as well, but there's nothing like having a magazine in your hands and be able to look at it and read it and sit on the toilet bowl and read a magazine if you need to.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
There's something about that. And I think that it's still going to be, I think that it ebbs and flows, Dave. I think it ebbs and flows. I think that right now you're in a situation where, even 8K has stopped making some of their books that they were doing. I think they had other books that were planned, like the Adam Wilder had his book. You have some other books that they do, painting German armor or modern armor, things like that. I think they've had a couple of books that they were supposed to be releasing that they canceled. So,
well,
depends. $6 for a book is expensive.
Yeah. They've sort of pigeonholed themselves over time, haven't they? And like once you've got like one FAQ book, you don't necessarily need to buy the second and the third and the all that.
Right. I agree with that. And, you know, it's, you know, you go back and if you have like a collection of model magazines and you just go and you flip through them and you pick, like, let's say some random, like over here, I got a box right here in front of me. I got a box full of the Japanese armor modeling magazines from Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
A whole box of them. Now,
They do things different, don't they?
Right. And if you go back, there's like 50 issues there. If you go back and you read those magazines and you go back to they go back to like the 90s, you look at some of those pages and you're like, wow, the hobby was really different back in 1998.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you flip through a couple of these issues. Now you're into like 2007. And you're like, wow, modeling was really different in 2007. Like, you don't realize, like, just like hairstyles and, you know, culture changes from decade to decade. Like, you can tell the 50s, you can tell the 60s and 70s. Like, now it's like in the last like 10 years, there hasn't been much change. Go back to 2015, it still looks like 2025 now. But the difference between 2005 to 2015, there was a big disparity. But now the disparity's kind of gone. That's why, like, you know, you can't tell the difference between, like, you know, if you look at pictures from 10 years ago, you're like, wow, everything looks the same. Because things were kind of the same. Technology hasn't, it's kind of the same. And it's the same thing with the hobby. And with the model magazines, I just think that it is declining, sort of, but I think that it ebbs and flows a little bit too, depending on what people were interested in at the time.
I think Japan would retain much more of its sort of identity as far as modeling goes, because it's not like you can't get all the AK and MiG and other Spanish type products, weathering products,
Right?
But they've gone so long without them, right?
Right.
And they already had, like, it's not like you look at Tamiya or GSI Krios, you know, Guns, AK. They don't have much in the way of like weathering products. They've got like those little weathering washi type things, and it comes in like 5 colors, and that's it. You know,
and then you got like the blush case that they have with the weathering.
I don't
because
get that.
You know, Tamiya's model is really odd because they know what works and they don't go out of their way to try to, like, they do innovate when it comes to like scale sizes and things like that. Remember, a lot of scale sizes are because of Tamiya.
Yeah.
But when it comes to certain things, like Mr. Tamiya, like Fred Medell from Tamiya America was on my, I do 2 podcasts, right? So I do.
You did 2 podcasts. You're not busy enough that you can't do anything else, so you go and do 2 other podcasts.
And then we had the quarter scale, and Fred Medell was the first one to say, he was on from TMA America on the quarter scale. You know, they have a model and they follow it, and they don't really veer away from that. You know, unlike companies like AK or MiG, you know, or some of these other companies like even Mr. Hobby, they'll just go out of their way to try different things and see if it bites. Right?
Yep.
Doesn't do that. They don't go, you know, let's try this and see if it's going to work. No. If they release it, they're sticking with it. Those other companies, like, they go, oh, we're going to try a new formula, and they get rid of a line and start another line. Like, they just get rid of it, you know. So
yeah, but I mean, it's because to me, like, they're driving down the middle of the road, right? They don't need to worry about the fringes.
You know, that too, because they also have, you know, radio control that really dictates their company. Like, their money.
That's true.
Their money is RC, you know, so they, you know, they'll come out with new RC stuff. That's their bread and butter. You know, you go to like their headquarters in Japan, which I've never been to, but I sit and watch YouTube videos and get so excited watching them. I wish I could be there. And you go and you see the people go into those, you know, Tamiya headquarters, and you see how influenced RC's there. Like 3 levels is RC, and only like 1 is their plastic, you know, the models. So
yeah, that's right.
Sorry, Dave, we went on another tangent. Sorry about that.
That's fine. The we're all about the tangents here.
Yep. What makes it's such an interesting sort of show.
So what I was sort of saying was, you know, especially because of the language barrier, and because the Japanese actually don't use the internet a whole lot, you know, they're still very much into print media.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're sort of I mean, this is the classic thing of, Japan, oh, super, they're living in the future. It's like, no, they're really just living in the 1990s, really.
Well, what did you say to, we got a little group that we chatted amongst ourselves. You posted that thing about that author and...
Author?
Or...
the top 7 authors.
The top 7 authors
yeah.
in the world. By volume, I guess.
Yeah, so this is just like fictional authors. And the top 10 of all time, you've got, Shakespeare. And this is like all sales. Like I'm guessing it's including movies and stuff like that. Obviously, Shakespeare's number 1 because they just wheel out another Romeo and Juliet type movie every so often, But number 7 on the list is a manga author because that stuff is just selling like nuts, right? And we don't hear much about it. If you're into anime, you know what's going on and you know how much of an institution because he's only ever done 1 series. That's it.
Right.
And yet,
but it's been running for like 20 years.
He's listed above the likes of Stephen King and J.K. Rowling.
Right.
How's
That's
that?
crazy. Well,
it's sort of like, it's a testament to like the language barrier and the barrier between Japan and the rest of the world. And if you don't know what's like, if you go to like the Shizuoka Hobby Show, and because they don't really do competitions in Japan, they don't funnel into categories like we do. Like here,
I was going to say that before. That's the whole reason why they don't. Their take on those modeling shows is so much different than the Western world. That's for sure.
Here, we'll funnel into the different IPMS categories. You got cars, you got tanks, you got planes, and then you go to Shizuoka and you're like, okay, well, there's that guy. He's doing tanks. Yeah. No one's really doing planes much. You do get the occasional stuff, but there's a lot of like way off road. They're mixing. They're doing like there's a lot of civilian dioramas. There's a lot of science fiction dioramas and things like that. They're doing like Godzilla versus what's the other what's the other one? The one with the 7 heads or whatever it is.
Mothra. What's that?
Monster Zero.
In any case, like they're really sort of
King Ghidorah.
Yeah, King Ghidorah.
Yeah,
but the point I'm making is that they're very sort of because they're not getting funneled into categories and scales and things like that. They just go completely off road. They go, they get super creative, and then they're not concerned with borders,
Right. So here's an interesting question, and while we're sort of talking about this, is because they don't worry about that, does that make them sort of more innovative in regards to what they're producing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like this, you think about it from like a neutral standpoint, where you're a 15-year-old kid, you're getting into scale modeling. You can go in any direction you want. You can go, okay, I'm going to grab these civilian figures, and I'm going to grab this Godzilla model, and I'm just going to start making my own diorama out of balsa wood, and that's because that's what you want to do. And if I want to put like a train on that as well, I'll do that.
Yeah,
it doesn't. Right. The furthest thing from their mind is I need to up my streaking grime so I can win this competition.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if I wonder if not having to worry about that sort of releases you a bit more to sort of
it would,
or frees you up.
Yeah, it would. It definitely would free you right up.
Yeah, I mean, like that's
like you think when we were kids and we were building our own stuff, and when we got creative. We didn't care about streaking. We didn't care.
Right.
We didn't care if it was we were building a number 1 placer at a competition.
You were so.
But you really got into it, didn't you?
Yep, you did.
But that also dictates the products. It also dictates like so many things. Like that's why to me I wouldn't have all these special dedicated washers and weathering products, is because like no one would buy them in Japan.
Right.
Not enough in any kind of volume.
Right. And I was speaking to somebody about, I forgot who we were having a discussion with, who's familiar with like a lot of Japanese culture. The hobby's huge there.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about sales of model kits here in New York, in the States, and how many kits need to be sold and how big the hobby is here. And, most of the model kits that are sold are in, Asia, right?
Yep.
Hong Kong, China, Korea, Japan. And so many people in Japan are involved in scale modeling in some way or another. And it's amazing the percentage of people who participate in, whether it's might be doing a Hello Kitty little doll, or doing a Studio Ghibli, diorama that they buy, or doing armor, or doing planes and stuff like that. It's like the statistics are astronomical, and they don't have a lot of room there. The people, they live on top of each other, so they don't have. That's why they're going more towards smaller scale subjects, because they just don't have the room to store all their stuff in their places where they live. And that was a big thing that people would talk about, like how the hobby in Japan, how it's changed or how it is over there, because so many people are involved in it. Like here on Long Island, where I live in New York City, Brooklyn, we have, there's 3 million people who live on an island. People don't realize that Brooklyn and Queens is all Long Island, right? So you got Long Island proper, and then you have part of New York City on Long Island. There's 3 million people sandwiched in on this little island that's like 100 miles long and 35 miles wide, right? There's only like 4 hobby shops on this island out here. 4. That's it. There's one big one, and there's 3 little ones or so. But there's if you think about that, there's 3 million people, and it's like 4 hobby shops.
And yet,
go to Japan,
and then in Melbourne, we've got 5 million people in Greater Metropolitan Melbourne and 16 hobby shops.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then you go to Japan, and there's areas of Japan, like in Akihabara or some of these other places, where like every 3 blocks is a hobby shop.
Yes.
Or something like hobby or related. Like here
in
Long Island, we have book offs that just are now opening up here in the United States. So there was one.
What'd you say? A book what?
Book off.
Book off.
Okay.
Right. So in Japan, they have what these thrift shops. They're called offs. OFF. Book off, hobby off. That's what they call them. They're all kind of the same thing. And you go in there, and I have one that's opened up in my town. It's called Book Off, and it's a Japanese thrift shop. Now they have new stuff there, but it's all video games, hobby related stuff, and manga. Like you talked about anime and manga, they have like rows, like 150 feet long or more, 200 feet, just filled with manga books. It's like insane how the culture is over there. So. Wow, we really went off on a tangent.
That's the beauty about podcasting. You're not locked into anything at all. You can just go where you need to go.
No, this is great.
All right, just one sec. We're going to pause there because we've got this strange sound that we can't track down. So we're going to try and lock it down. So one sec. Okay,
you're right over this. I'm a little concerned here. You're like the gold standard of modeling podcasts. You have all these technical difficulties, for God's sake.
The thing is, Dave doesn't sort of get this all set up and then leave it. He's constantly tearing it out because he also works in here. So he has to disconnect things and then plug them in again, and then everything gets reset.
How far do you guys live away from this guy?
About 15 minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
Like this, you just sit on your computer and then use Discord and go in Audacity. You could
No.
Zap it out.
No, because
otherwise we miss out on a continental breakfast.
Yeah, that's right. He provides breakfast for this.
Okay, there you go. Maybe one day when he invites me over his humble abode.
Oh yeah, and if you're in town, you do get invited.
Yeah, that's a given.
I can't speak lately. I've been dying lately. I've been mispronouncing words left and right. It's been terrible.
We're normal. We're used to that. It's Dave,
Hey, you want to talk about how to get published though? Do you want to go that route?
Yeah. Let's go. Why don't we go back on the main topic? That sounds like a good idea.
Do you want to ask me the question? Or you want me to just veer into it?
Just veer into it. Go for it.
All right. So to go back to the magazine stuff, when we talked about the background. Like, I know a lot of people, there's a lot of people who would still love to get published in magazines. And for me, there was always a goal of mine as a modeler. I don't know if it was for validation or something, maybe to see yourself in print or a model that you did, whether it's on a cover of a magazine or like in the body of a magazine. I think a lot of people strive for that.
Yeah,
and
because
it's not as
it's like it's almost like you could win a competition, but being published is a whole nother level, right?
It is, yeah.
Right.
It's bragging rights.
Right. Like I say to people, and I've said to people, what would you rather do? Would you rather win like a first place at that local show or that regional show, or would you rather have that model on the front page or the front cover of a well-known magazine? And of course, the cover is always going to win all the time.
Yeah.
It's just something about being published for people, and myself included. But it's not as difficult as people think it is. But you do have to do certain things to ensure that your model is going to be right for a magazine.
Before you dive into that, can I just comment and say, I don't care if people do it for bragging rights or to puff their chest out. All right, the way I look at it is that they're contributing to the most wonderful hobby in the world by actually showing what they're doing. If they're getting that extra bit out of it, great. But they're contributing to our fantastic hobby.
You know what? One thing that's popped into my
You see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
If I ever got published, right, I would hope it's a model that I actually like and not one that I absolutely loathe.
Well, you're
Like
we've all
got that one mold that everyone's like, oh man, it's so good, and you're like, no, I can't stand looking at this thing because it's arguably my worst work, that kind of thing.
Sorry, Riv, I derailed you. Go ahead.
No, I think that you make a great point. And you know what? I think that if people understood what it takes to be able to get their model published, especially if they do something published worthy, right? There's a lot of people out there who struggle on certain basic things that it wouldn't, like when it comes to the model itself, that maybe not make it published worthy.
Yeah.
But then it goes another side. It's the technical things. Like some people can build an amazing model but take terrible pictures.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if you can't take a good photograph, you're not going to get published, or it's going to be difficult to get your model in the magazine. Like for instance, like with Military Modelcraft, we try to push the notion of taking pictures of models with a white background. That way, when it's laid out in the magazine, it's integrated with text. Right?
Yes.
If you use blue background, what's that?
I'm very famously against the old-fashioned blue background.
Which Ian loves.
I don't do it anymore. I stopped doing that.
Blue is
After
blue is
copping
good
enough
if you're gonna
crap
just
from
post on
Julian, I
Facebook.
gave up with it.
Yeah, blue is not good. It's either white or black. Black is good if you're using like a black background and white text. But if you want a white background, if you're using black text, like most magazines are using. But we definitely encourage a white background. I tell everybody to do that. Now, a lot of people listen, iPhones and your phones on your camera phones are fantastic, and they are. And Apple and Android make apps for their phones to unlock certain features that aren't defaulted in your phone, where you can maybe change the f-stop or the aperture, or fix the shutter speed and things like that. Allow more light in so you can get a better picture that doesn't have, if you don't have enough light around your model that's diffused, you can allow your camera to take in more light so it can lighten your picture up a little bit better. People can do that, but iPhones and Android phones don't really give you a very good depth of field. So when you're taking pictures of your models, but let's say a cell phone or like a smartphone, they're great on Facebook because it's small. People looking at it on the screen on their phone. So that depth of field or that resolution isn't really a problem because it looks good. But if you blow that up on a screen, you can see the issues where it's out of focus in the background, in focus in the foreground. It might be in focus here, but not here. There might be an imperfection here, but not here. It looks great on Facebook, but if you want to use it in a magazine, it's going to be a problem.
That's crap, yeah.
That's right. So I tell people all the time that first and foremost, what they should do is they should invest in a digital camera. It doesn't have to be one of these $5,000, mirrorless cameras. But you can get a very, very good DSLR camera that can take very, very good, excellent photos for a very good price. And it's also not the body of the camera that costs a lot of money, it's the lenses. Right? So for instance, I use a Nikon Z. So I use a mirrorless camera. I use a standard lens for my regular photographs, but I also use a macro lens when I'm doing small parts or when I want to show detail. That lens cost me $1,200, just the lens. But that lens, the clarity of that lens is like, if you don't take that part and like wash it and hit like with a dust brush, every little speck of dust will look like it's a bowling ball on that part.
Oh, it does,
Yeah. So the point is first and foremost, you want to take pictures on a white background, and you should invest in a decent DSLR or mirrorless camera with a good lens. That way you can take, in focused, pictures. Other thing is tripod and a timer. You never ever take a picture and hit the camera and take a picture because it's going to move.
Correct.
That little shake can cause a blur or out of focus. You always set your camera to a timer. On my cameras, there's apps on Nikon where you don't even need to touch the camera. You can have a little clicker in your hand, and you can look at it on you can send the pic. It goes wireless to your computer, and you can actually look at the screen on your computer, and your camera's across the room, and you could be taking pictures of your model and focus in and do all this stuff.
Wow.
I don't do that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. People do that. That's crazy. But for me, I set my camera to a 5-second timer. I set my focus. I hit the auto. I set the autofocus. I touch the screen where I want the camera to focus on. It does a countdown. The camera stays nice and steady. Takes the picture. Years ago, it cost every time you took a picture, it cost you money. Now,
that's
with
right.
Digital cameras, you could take 1,000 pictures. It doesn't cost $1, so it's perfect.
What about lighting that though as well? What tips would you get to people to?
I use a light box. I use a light box that I got from Amazon. Amazon makes excellent photography light boxes with diffuse lighting. The one that I have has comes with the full assortment of diffuse lighting on top. I added more LED lights to the side that are diffused, and then I use 2 diffused lighting in the front on the sides of my camera. So there's light from top, light from the sides, and light from the front, and that'll take away almost all the shadowing that can happen on a model. You'll get a little bit at the bottom, but not much. The problem is the people use direct lighting. They're not using the right color lighting. They're using like a yellow lighting.
Yellow would out.
You want white diffused light. LEDs are the best, and you want to try to get as much lighting as possible. But if you have a very good camera, the camera will adjust how much light is coming in. You can take more light in, you can take less light in. You can make your background lighter, you can make your background darker. It depends on the settings that you use on your camera, and that's very, very important.
Yeah,
that's the photography aspect.
The trap that I see people fall into is they want that white, clean background look, right? And so they take their photo, but the background comes out grey. And then they move it into Photoshop and they just crank the contrast.
Yeah. One of the things that like Andy Whitaker who does stuff for Guideline Publications, he does Military Modelcraft and Fantasy Figure International. He doesn't want you don't take your picture and put it in Lightroom or like Adobe Lightroom or anything. Like he doesn't care if you clean up your like dust off your model, like using like a blending or what they call what is it called, a healing brush. In Photoshop. But you don't want to touch the levels, the color levels, the light levels, because he'll do that in the layout process. So the best way to say it like this when it comes to if you're contributing to a magazine, you don't have to be a perfect photographer and you don't have to be a perfect writer. Because if you have a guy who can do great layouts, can fix your pictures, you can't make him in focus, but he can fix the color. And if you can't write, don't worry about it. We're modelers, we're not writers. And if you write something and convey what you're trying. If you can convey what you did in your model in a decent form, a good editor can make it sound better.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yeah,
it does. Which now leads me to the question, and we're having a quick look at March 2025 issue 341. How do you choose what ones you accept? Because no doubt you get unsolicited requests to submit to the magazine.
Right.
What do you look at and go, oh, I've got to put that in the next issue? Or, wow, stop the presses. This is going to go in now. What is it that makes you...
I'll tell you, now I'm like the guy that goes around and says, oh, I like that. I'm going to try to get him in the magazine. Right? So there are people within, like, let's say the last couple of months that I've seen that I know, you know a lot of people on social media. Some people you speak to on a regular basis. Some people you don't. There have been some people that I spoke to, and I'm like, you know what? I love the way you're building that model. That would be great in a magazine. Would you want to write an article? Sure. Okay, I'm going to hook you up with Dave Grummet. He's going to tell you everything you need to do, and we're going to get you in the magazine. And that has happened, and people have gotten in the magazine with that type of me, like, reaching out to them, right? Military Modelcraft, unlike, let's say, Fine Scale, doesn't really take solicitations, but you can. Listen, if you solicit and you say, you know what, I'm going to send an email to Rob Riv or to Dave Grummet, a model that I'm doing that I want to see maybe can get in the magazine, yeah, we'll consider that. Absolutely. It's about promoting the hobby.
Yeah.
If you're doing something great, we want to put it in there. and there is competition to try to get it in somebody's magazine, right?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I was told, I kind of got chastised for posting some of my work that's in military motorcraft on some other magazine pages because the competitors, and I had to get chastised for that, which I understand. I understand that, but what I can tell you how we determine what should be in a magazine and how the layout should be. You don't want to have too many like subjects in each issue. Meaning, you don't want to have an issue that's got let's say there's 6 featured articles where there's builds and paint articles on a specific build or a diorama. You don't want to have 3 or 4 German World War II articles in the same magazine. You don't. You want to have a German vehicle on the cover because German vehicles in World War II sell magazines.
Yes.
Right. The Patton tank on a cover is not going to sell a magazine more than having a Stug 3G or a King Tiger on the cover. A King Tiger on a cover of a magazine done great is going to sell a lot better than an Abrams on a magazine.
That's crazy.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So there's a reason why most modeling magazines a lot of times show World War II German vehicles, because World War II German vehicles sell magazines. They do.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
So the person who submits it, and or you guys tap on the shoulder and say, hey, want to do a feature on, or if you can do a model for us, does that individual get paid for submitting that stuff?
They will. They will. I don't take payment for what I do. I'm those who know me, and you've heard me say this probably, Davis. I do a lot of things for the hobby just to give back.
Yep.
Yes.
So I don't take payment, but the people do get paid. I will say that some people aren't really concerned about that, and some people are. And the ones that request payment will almost always get paid. Now, I don't know. I can't tell you what that fee is totally because I'm not in charge of the marketing and stuff.
Yeah.
But I would say it can be anywhere from $300 for an article, $350.
Jeez,
So
that's
American,
amount.
US.
That's decent. Amount.
Not Australian. You'll go hungry on $350.
Yes, that's right. We would too.
Yes.
Is there anything that somebody should avoid? I mean, we've heard of perhaps magazines out there or publishing companies that are unscrupulous. And I don't want to get you in a position where you're sort of getting into trouble, but how does somebody avoid that?
Avoid what again? What was that?
Being
duped by a magazine.
Being duped by unscrupulous publishers.
Well, aren't those the publishers that are struggling to make money?
Yeah, they are now.
Rather than the ones that are actually living in the present day?
I will say that if you're going to do work for a magazine, whether it's Military Motorcraft or others, definitely inquire before if there's payment going to be received because of doing the article. If you want to get paid, you should definitely, and if you do work for Military Motorcraft and expect payment, you will get paid. Other magazines I can't really speak for. I mean, I've heard nightmare stories about never getting paid from certain magazines, maybe going back to Military Miniatures and Review, if anybody remembers those magazines and things like that. Pat and those magazines, they were crazy, but there is a track record. Fine Scale was a magazine that paid everybody for their articles and never ran them. Right. So they would just Fine Scale would take solicitations from people, anybody. And if they liked your article, they would pay you for it, but they might not run it.
Yeah.
Well,
not a good business sense, is it?
Well, here's a question on intellectual property, and I don't know this area so well, so maybe you can help me out here. So, if I submit the pictures of a model I've made to a magazine and they accept it and they pay me for it, do they then own the intellectual rights to those pictures because you're allowing them to publish, or is it something that I still retain?
No, you retain those.
Okay.
You're the author. You're the creator. This is a good angle too. Like I'm going to start doing some work for Steel Masters now, which is a German magazine, right? It's a great magazine.
Good name for a magazine.
Yeah, Steel Masters is great. So the interesting thing about the way we try to do things is if you have an article that you write, could be anything, and it gets submitted to an English-speaking or English language magazine, you don't submit it again to another English speaking magazine. It's published in one, and that's usually it. Like, you're not going to have a magazine. Like, it's frowned upon to have, let's say, I do an article on, let's say, a king tiger.
Yep.
And then it's published in Military Modelcraft, and then it's published, let's say, in To Me International Magazine or Model Military, Brett Green's magazine over here in Australia, right? Luke Pitt, I do the quarter scale with, right? That usually doesn't happen because they're both English language. But there is cross-mag articles in other languages. So I can theoretically write an article for Military Modelcraft and then also have that same article in Steelmasters because it's German-based.
Yes.
German-speaking language.
Right.
So there's no conflict.
Yep.
Because you're not competing against the same people buying those magazines. And also good because it promotes it. So for instance, if I was to do an article for Military Modelcraft, which I'm doing, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to submit this to Steelmasters. In Steelmasters, they can even write in there or vice versa, say that it's also going to be in this magazine as well, English speaking, so people can read it in another language.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting too. So that kind of saves a little bit of that.
Yeah. So where can people actually get Military Modelcraft International from?
Military Modelcraft International, you can buy it through the publisher, through Guidelines Publications. If you Google Guideline Publications, you'll see all their magazines from anywhere from Military Modelcraft to Scale Model Aircraft to Fantasy Figure and other magazines. They're also on Pocket Mags digitally. So Pocket Mags is usually like, through your phone app, you can get you can get a subscription, you can buy individual issues. Here in the States, they're available through Sprue Brothers and some other online hobby shops. Doyle Books as well sells Military Modelcraft. Barnes and Nobles, if you need to go like at the bookseller or something here. I don't know if you guys have Barnes and Noble in Australia.
No, I think we used to. I think
we used to have Borders.
Oh, I used to love Borders books.
Borders all closed here too. But
really?
Borders. There's no more Borders books here either.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been closed down for a while. Walden Books was another one. They're no longer around. It's just Barnes and Noble, really.
Wow.
Yeah. But you can go to like bookstores that sell like periodicals. Military Modelcraft will usually be there, like with the other, bigger magazines in the hobby. But it's readily available. And if you I always say get a subscription. It depends where you live. If you live in Europe, you're getting their magazine pretty much. Like obviously, it's always a month ahead. So like we're in March, so this month the April issue comes out. And we're going to go to print. I'm actually deadlined. I got to get an article done within like the next 2 days so I can make this next issue. But the April issue will be out like in Europe, like by like the 15th of the month. And then by like the 25th, it'll be available like in the States. So, and then you should get your subscription around that. So it varies depending on where you are in the world.
So it's been fantastic having you on the show and talking all about that, and I'm sure I've learned some stuff, and I know that some of our listeners will have definitely appreciate it. I'm curious now, so you also do podcasting as well?
Yes. Right?
It's an open question, so you can pump yourself up. Come on.
I don't know. I mean, listen, we're all in this together. We all support each other. I'm hoping I can boost your ratings with me having you on tonight. With you, I'm sure.
Well, God forbid it goes the other way.
You'll probably come down. Actually, no. I host the Modeling Insanity podcast, and it's obviously
a great show. I love listening to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Listen, I have a lot of fun. I have, the guys that are on the show: Justin, Steve, Frank Donati, Rob Adams. These are guys that we've been friends for years, and I always say if you're not friends outside of the hobby, it just doesn't work.
No.
Like, we get along so well and we can break chops and have fun because we're all friends. We're not a boy band that was put together by some producer. You're a bunch of friends that, you love each other's company and you appreciate their, what they're inside. We break chops, but that the Insanity is great and it's been going really well. Almost 2 years now with this new podcast. And I also do the quarter scale with Stan Spooner and Luke Pitt. Your fellow countryman, Luke Pitt. I don't know if you guys know Luke, but Luke is an amazing 148 scale model. So is Stan Spooner. Stan's probably one of the best armor 148 scale modelers in the world, especially United States, and Luke Pitt the same over in Australia. So I'm really humbled to be able to be with them. I looked up to them. It's funny. You look up to modelers. Especially growing up, or not growing up. That's not like they're like 80, but like coming up in the modeling world, you look up to modelers. And two modelers that I always looked up to as modelers was Stan Spooner and Luke Pitt. And to be able to be on a podcast and run a podcast with them as on there with me, it's humbling because I looked up to them as models and now I get to call them friends now.
Yeah.
So that's why that's fun and good. That's a much different podcast than the Insanity. It's not insane like the Insanity. It's more level-headed and fun. So I appreciate those guys. So, yeah, everything's going great.
And I certainly appreciate you putting both those podcasts out there. They're great to listen to. And as you said, they're markedly different from each other. The Insanity one, let's say 18 plus audience.
Yes.
And that's no holes barred. Everybody sort of drops in with their 2 bits worth. And it's great and it's funny conversation.
Oh, the banter's great.
It is hilarious sometimes.
Listen, I'm always going to break tops. I mean, it's definitely unscripted, and it's also not like there's vulgarity on that podcast. A lot of times it's from me telling funny, stupid stories. But listen, all the podcasts like yourself, Dave, you're the Podfather. I owe you a gratitude a little bit. A debt of gratitude. I guess, maybe. It depends. If you buy me a drink when I see you at the Nationals when we're together, then maybe we'll be okay. You can pay me that money you owe me. But the other guys, all the other podcasts, everybody helps each other. And that's just what it's all.
Yeah, it's a great community.
Well, are you going to the Nationals in 26?
I'll be dead. I don't know where I'm.
You won't be dead in 26.
I might be.
Think positive.
But I'm definitely going to be at the IPMS Nationals this year in 25 in Virginia.
I can't get over there every year, man. It just costs too much
Where
money.
is it in 26?
Indiana, I want to say.
There's a good possibility.
Okay.
There's a good but there's also a possibility that 26 might have the AMPS Nationals in Indiana as well.
Oh, yeah, that would be more important to him, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And I'm actually running for executive board for AMPS now. This thing. So I'm finally want to start contributing a little more on like that level. So listen, there's a lot of things going on. Yeah. I got so much between the 2 podcasts, and what it's like to run a podcast.
I know.
We're starting the YouTube. We're starting Modeling Insanity TV YouTube channel. I got a lot of stuff that I'm putting up.
Cool.
I do the magazine, and I got a jaw of career, and I got a pain in the ass wife.
Come on, you got a beautiful wife. Don't be talking about it like that.
You met Debbie? Did you ever see my wife?
No.
You don't want to meet her.
I didn't say that. He's twisting my words. You got to be careful of these guys from Long Island. I'm telling you.
No, my wife.
You shake their hand, and when you get your hand back, you count your fingers and make sure you're getting 5 fingers back.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, and in all seriousness, I got to make sure I got to keep the illusion going that my wife's a pain in the neck. My wife lets me do whatever I want.
Yeah,
and
you're a lucky man.
And she never, ever complains. Ever. She never comes down and says, Rob, you're spending too much time in the model room. Rob, you're spending too much time at the computer editing. Never. Never comes out of her mouth does she ever complain about anything. So, God bless that. But edit that out because I can't get that out.
Okay, I'll edit that out. Wink, wink. Yes.
Dave, I really appreciate you having me on. I had a lot of fun. And I will say this. This is off the rack. You edit this out. I want to do another roundtable, though. People have been asking about it, and I think that we should. I know.
Hang on, wait. Did he say I've got to edit this out or still keep it rolling?
Oh, you want to keep this in?
Yeah, let's keep it rolling.
I don't want to put other people on the spot.
No.
I spoke to guys like Barry Biediger, TJ, all the guys, Brian Dunclow, everybody on the other podcast, Stuart Clark. Yeah. They all want to get back together and hang out and have a few laughs on a roundtable again. I think we should do it.
Well, you know what? Like we actually... The round table's good, but there's just so many personalities there trying to talk. It makes it a bit hard. We used to hang out and do just a catch-up with the guys just on Zoom back in the day, and that sort of dropped off in recent times.
I think that was mainly during the COVID times.
During COVID, we used to just call each other up and just sit there and build models and talk to each other.
No, but I want to do a show and joke around. Like, I would record it, whatever, even if, you guys come on the Insanity, the 3 of you guys.
Oh, yeah, shit, Jay. I'll be on.
Did you ever read? Did you hear the episode when I had D-Ran and Whitey from the Geeks on?
Yeah, I
Yes.
When I did we got taken over. Where you know how many people messaged me and they said they kept shutting it off and restarting because they kept thinking it was a Geeks episode. Because I ran it. It started like a Geeks episode.
It
It was
did,
their
yes,
music.
that's
D-Ran
right.
came on,
That
did his
was
intro,
really good. Yeah.
and then I jumped on screaming at him like they took over the show. That was fun.
Yeah. No, I would love
Gotta
to do
make
that.
people
Love to
laugh.
jump
Well,
on the
we would
Insanity.
love to come on and
Oh yeah,
have a chat
I would
to you
love to do
guys.
something. That would
Yeah.
be great. We definitely got to set it up.
Right, cool.
Thanks, guys,
Done.
for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
No worries, mate. It's
it's
been great.
great.
And before you go out, so how can people track you down and find you if they want to send you hate mail or something like that?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. Well, my personal page, obviously, on Facebook is Rob Riviezzo, but my modeling page is Rob Riv's Modeling Insanity. And you can find me, you can message me on Facebook there. And, Rob Riv's Modeling Insanity at gmail.com is my email address for that page. And, you can message me on Facebook. I'll always answer. I never avoid anybody either yelling at me, calling me a jerk, or just saying nice things. I'll always respond.
All right, good on you, mate. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it.
No
been
problem. at
great.
all. Well, gents, it has been an awesome show.
Oh, has it ever?
A very long show as well, surprisingly.
Yes. No, great chatting with Rob. It's the one thing, just listening to their show. Modeling Insanity is just absolute crack up.
And he's a very, very opinionated, and but he does it in a way that it's not as insulting as you would expect it to be.
I just reckon he's a very knowledgeable person. He knows what he's
100%.
talking about.
100%. Yeah.
And he's not afraid to say what he thinks.
And he's passionate about the
Oh,
hobby.
is he ever?
Yeah.
Is he ever? Need more people like him around.
Oh, I think there's plenty of people like him around. We're just going to go and find them and have them on the show.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly right. Gents, we've been here for quite some time.
Yes.
I haven't had much sleep because I had a late night last night.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to bring this home.
Sounds
Wow.
like a plan.
Yeah.
Ian,
Adios, everybody.
Julian.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, guys. We'll be back with another show, as I said, coming to you from Hearns Hobbies in Melbourne. So we're really excited about that. So can't wait to see you. We'll be back soon. And don't forget, there's some other wonderful podcasts for you to listen to. Simply go to modelpodcasts.com and you'll find a listing of all of the other fantastic scale modeling podcasts there for your listening pleasure. Don't forget, send us an email on the bench at 64, beg your pardon, on the bench 64 at gmail.com. And don't forget to check out the show notes for the link to our SpeakPipe, where you can leave us a message. Proving extremely popular, and we love hearing your voices, so please go and click on that link and leave a message or ask a question, whatever you want. Thanks, guys. We'll be back next week.